and welcome to the Temple Mount Podcast. Tonight we have another installation in our ongoing World of Darkness role-playing game campaign. Joining us in tonight's session, we have Shad Viano Feroth from Clan Tremere. We have Caitlin Clark from Clan Ventru. We have Sid Rogers, changeling of the Puka variety. And we will be jumping into it right away, so join us on the Temple Mount Discord server and find our podcasts on YouTube and BitChute. So we'll begin with a Bible verse to set the theme. Mr. Clark.
It'll be Ephesians 6:10 through 11. Finally, be strong in the Lord and the strength of his might. Put on the full armor of God so that you will be able to stand firm against the schemes of the devil.
Amen. So, Mr. Viano Feroth, can you please give us a quick recap of where your character arrived last session?
Sure. So, during the last 24 hours or so, Shad met up with both OLMD, Gangrel, potentially Ancilla, a few hundred years old, as well as Lucy Fairbrooks. Sarah Fairbrooks, quote-unquote, sister of Toreador, and was instructed by members of the Ivory Tower to fix some of the mess that the party had created. Dad has a very uneasy feeling. Most of this is concerned with some major plot that he's not aware of, which makes him even more nervous. Probably a CYA from the Sheriff David. But whatever the actual reason is, Dad has decided to stick with OLMB as well as Sarah and the Changeling in order to try to clean up some of the messes that are currently threatening the Masquerade in Cascadia City, which are the Kindred, Michael Williams, who was turned without permission, now being missing, Sabat murdering a Tremere.
Sorry about that. Hold on a second.
Yeah, what?
I apologize. Carry on.
So, some of the issues going on in Cascadia City as of now include Michael Williams, the unapproved Kindred, being missing in action, a Tremere wizard being executed, as well as related text disappeared from his office, likely as Sabat, but it could be a Sabat. It could be it could be somebody trying to frame this Sabat, as their sigil was painted in his blood on the wall. So tracking down the murderer, potentially Diablerist. The first lead there is King Rat, and on that front, although the party wasn't successful in finding Michael Williams or coming to good terms with the gangrels in the city, we did manage to speak to a leader or a member of the followers of Set, who agreed that to arrange a meeting between us and King Rat, but we had to give over the Changeling unbeknownst to him.
Okay, so where physically did you end up at the end of last session?
We were in the Pyramid nightclub, but I assume after that we all went to our separate havens and took a rest.
All right. So, Sid Rogers, is there anything you can add to the tale from your point of view?
Sid and Lucy basically sat in the car the whole time. She was on Instagram. He was reading this book that Lucy's quote-unquote mother had given to him about changelings. So he knows a little bit more about his what he is and what he can do. But he didn't. Neither of them really did much last time.
All right. And Mr. Keelan Clark, I guess I'm just going to ask you to give us a quick introduction to your character, and then
Sure.
we will read you in as your own prologue chapter here.
Okay. How detailed do you want it? I can make it.
As
Sorry,
detailed as you want.
Okay.
It's just, yeah.
All right. So just for the backstory of Keelan Clark, he is. Let me notes here. He's currently 868 years old. His last breath as a human was in 1191. He was 32 years old. He was a knight of King Richard I of England, who fought in the Third Crusades. He was skilled in hand-to-hand combat as well as sword and blade combat. He died fighting in the massacre of Ayeda in August of 1191 against the Muslim armies of the Sultan Saladin. He was nearly mortally wounded. So I think I may have said he died, but he did not. Sorry. He was nearly mortally wounded and was not recovered from the battlefield by his own forces. He was found by his sire, and his sire was scouring the battlefield looking for people to feed from easily who didn't really meet his convictions. But he found Callan, nearly mortally wounded, and ended up siring Callan, embraced him, and he became an 8th generation vampire. Callan was in a position of disdain for this new existence of his for many years, but he did have his sire as a guide, and he learned to turn his vampiric existence into a means to deliver justice that kings and courts and lawmen were seemingly failing to deliver to its proper end. He spent years feeding on and preying on predatory humans, sexual types, murderers, abusers. He has a few flaws. He has a prey of exclusion of feeding on children. He cannot feed on them. He's also realized that he has the flaw Grip of the Damned, which essentially invokes fear and terror in anybody he feeds on. But he doesn't really mind that so much because those he targets to feed on, he desires them to realize that they deserve what they're getting and they should be lucky that they aren't dead. He's also got an enemy, and I believe the enemy is of the clan of Set. He's got Iron Will as a merit, though, and he's tough to influence. He will hunt and keep these predators within his domain, and they are his herd for feeding. Generally, he has 2 to 3 at a time, but he can't stand any of them for very long, and eventually he will nearly drain them and leave them for dead with seeming signs of an overdose as the cause. After all, he thinks, who's going to miss these predators? Callan's got high convictions and self-control towards justice and defending the innocent or the helpless. He uses his skills as an investigator, and he works with the local law enforcement to get insight, and with the Ventrue to get insight to determine where predators might be slipping through these cracks of the legal system. And he targets them for his feedings and his vigilante justice. He doesn't mind killing those that he finds immoral. He's very strong, intimidating, and manipulative. He's dominating, and he's he's pretty good looking. He knows the true God from his background serving the king, and generally he doesn't like practices of the Middle Eastern traditions, as it reminds him of his human life enemies and his righteous warring. That's a background on Callan Clark.
All right, thank you. So where is your character residing currently, Keelan Clark? Does he have his own domain? Does he have his own lair of some kind?
Yeah, he's got a level 3 domain. I think I'm still working on exactly what it is, but for now I'm going to go with a high rise with a private flat that the elevator is not marked for.
Very well. So the question I have is, are you someone who's been in Cascadia City for a long time, or have you just arrived in Cascadia City? And if so, from where?
I've been here for quite some time. I ended up getting in among the Ventrue, and I kind of, though I'm not a huge fan, Callan's not a huge fan of the politics in general, he does put on a pretty good show with the Ventrue. He uses the connections of the sheriff and a few others to try to find those that he can prey upon. He does have some of his own motives and aspirations as well, but he mainly keeps those close to his chest.
And you said your character is starting with only 2 blood points, correct?
Yes, currently 2 out of a blood pool max of 15.
Okay, and your character is approximately 800 years old?
868 currently. If it's 2027, yep.
Okay. And so we will begin with Kaylin Clark's introductory session. It's currently 2027, July 1st, the early evening, in the sense that it is about 11:30 p.m., but the sun is down, and as the sun sets, you wake from your dreams of wars and crusades and battles from long ago. You have been wandering the face of the earth for centuries, and your wanderings have brought you to Cascadia City, where you have established a lair in the True North Square, the business district of Cascadia City, also known as G-City. And you have a private, unmarked penthouse suite in which you lair. You awake to the evening and maybe describe your environment or...
Yes, Callan wakes up and he goes immediately to check on his herd. He's got a couple rooms within his flat that are soundproofed and separate, that he keeps those who he captures for a time. So he's going to wake up and he's going to go and check on them. Walking over to the doors, he'll let himself in and he will begin to feed on each of them, one by one, because he's feeling quite famished.
Okay, so how many kine, being the kindred term for humans, do you have in this soundproofed room?
Currently 3.
And do you want to tell us who they are?
Sure. The 3 that Callan has right now, 2 he knows are child molesters that he's found during his investigations in the predatory database, and then a 3rd is a basically domestic violence abuser that he's come in contact with, that he'd been watching for some time. He is growing quite tired of these 3 though, and he does have plans to meet the sheriff. The sheriff will meet with him because he's willing to do a little bit of the sheriff's dirty work as far as creating political inconveniences for others who might oppose the current prince in exchange for information on those who are slipping through the cracks of the legal system.
All right, so I'm assuming these individuals in your feeding room are somehow restrained or otherwise unable to resist?
Right, all 3 of them are strapped to their own individual beds currently.
Okay.
Hands and legs are cuffed up. He does feed them, not his own blood, but he does provide meals for them and things like that, but otherwise they sit in their room with nobody but each other to keep themselves company.
All right, and so how many points of blood are you draining from these individuals to add to your blood pool?
Just 2 each currently, so 6 total.
All right, so you feed on the 3 individuals that you have been keeping in your soundproofed room, criminals perhaps delivered into your custody by the sheriff, David Wingates, through some kind of mutual agreement with the Ventru clan. And so you may add that to your blood points. The individuals are at this point accustomed to this ritual of feeding, so they don't resist in any way, not that they could anyway. So anyways, you add that and you feel revitalized, and the intense hunger that you were feeling is alleviated. Your cell phone is ringing, however, buzzing wherever you have it.
Bloody phone. Better get that. You guys lay back down, you know the drill. Keep quiet. Not that anybody could hear you anyway. Just gonna go over and pick up the phone. Yes, what can I do you for?
The number and the name are familiar, none other than the sheriff of Cascadia City, David Wingates, a fellow Ventru, powerful mover and shaker, not only in the clan, but in the overall Ivory Tower Camarilla in Cascadia City. And he says, "Mr. Clark, good evening. I'm terribly sorry to bother you on short notice, but I'm afraid we have need of your assistance with a delicate matter. Are you by any chance available to meet to discuss the details of the case this evening?"
For you, Sheriff, I can make myself available.
Excellent. I have a driver waiting outside of your building at your convenience. Take your time.
Very good. Let me gather my things and I'll be on my way.
The line goes dead.
I'm gonna go and grab. I carry a sword most of the time that I hide underneath a trench coat. It's pretty casually disguised though, as I am an investigator most of the time. So I have what you could imagine an investigator would be wearing, as well as a suit that the tie is not up on. The top two buttons are open, and I throw the trench coat over it loosely, with my sword in its place at my back, and I head downstairs to the car.
So there is a black limousine, perfectly clean and gleaming in the evening. A valet is holding the back door open for you, and you seat yourself in the back on the black leather. There's a glass inset onto the door on the opposite side with red liquid in it, to drink available. The valet seats himself or closes the door, and the driver looks back at you and smiles and begins driving you through the night of Cascadia City. You pass by the usual riffraff of the city, drug addicts, as well as you pass through the nicer area, well-dressed people enjoying the early evenings, shopping, going to restaurants, etc. But you are driven past all of this to the center of government in Cascadia City, the legislative building. You're brought up to a back entrance, past some security, into a shadowed sort of alcove, and a back door is lit up from within, and security is standing there awaiting your arrival. And the driver says, the sheriff is waiting for you inside.
Very good. Thank you for the drive. I'll hop out, take a deep breath of the night air, look around, kind of examine my surroundings a little bit. I'll give a nod as I head towards the guards and prepare to enter the building.
So you go in the door and up the stairs and into a room that is dimly lit by candlelight, in which the sheriff of the city, David Wingates, is seated behind a rich mahogany desk. There's also two other individuals you don't recognize, one male and one female, sort of sitting on his left and his right behind him. Both of them are looking at you. Both of them have black hair and very pale skin and sort of strange dark eyes. You can't quite tell in the dim light, but you feel like the two individuals with him, their eyes are all black, like all pupil. Whereas David Wingates has clear blue eyes, whitish hair, and is immaculately dressed in like a very expensive suit. And he greets you and says, "My brother, Mr. Clark, thank you for making time to meet with me this evening. Make yourself comfortable." And he gestures at the chair in front of his desk.
Of course, Sheriff's glad to be of help. What can I do for you this evening? Seems you've got some unusual company.
He says, "I respect you enough not to waste your time. I will level with you and be perfectly frank. The situation in Cascadia City has deteriorated precipitously, and we are moving towards chaos and bloodshed on multiple fronts. The picture is still hazy. The fog of war is in effect, and we're not yet sure what our adversaries are planning, but that they are in motion is beyond question. The situation began simply enough with a scandal of the creation of a new kindred without permission by the prince, Govind Singh, none other than the renegade scion of Cagliostro Claw, Alitu Levane, took it upon herself in some primitive flight of fancy to embrace a mortal by the name of Michael Williams. Why, no one is entirely sure, but by doing so, she created a scandal. We thought that bringing one of our studious Tremere Ancille, Shad Viano Ferath, on board, we could avoid the scandal by bringing Michael Williams under the protection of the Masquerade and under obedience to our authority. Unfortunately, he disobeyed direct orders and returned to his Cyrus in their territory or domain of Wildwood Park, and his status as of now is renegade, to be brought in dead or alive. However, that situation has begun to pale in significance to the ongoing conflict with the Sabbat and their seeming alliance with some of the independent clans in the city. We have evidence that what we can only assume was a Sabbat Pak was able to infiltrate a Tremere Chantry House in Cascadia University and kill one of the kindred, a man by the name of Oliver, companion Tremere of Shad Viano Feroth, and steal from under our nose an important manuscript. He's also been making overtures towards Shad and his compatriots, attempting to lure them into the sway of the Sabbat. But most concerning of all is the activity of the serpents, the Setites. As you know, they are black of soul and nefarious of both means and ends, and they have their tentacles deeper than I'd like to admit in most aspects of the city. They're selling fentanyl and methamphetamines and controlling vast revenue streams, and a large number of criminal gangs owe their allegiance to the Setites, whether they know it or not. This is the situation which I'm asking you to become embroiled in, and I realize it's not a small thing that I ask. It's even more complicated than that, so bear with me. The Tremere whelp, Lucy Fairbrook, was able to rescue an unusual individual named Sid Rogers, who had been kidnapped by what our intelligence has confirmed was a compatriot pair of kindred renegades, one Ravnos and one Bruja, and she rescued him from under the nose of the Setites. This seems to have inflamed them, and the harpy Sarah Fairbrook says that there's been unprecedented activity of both the Bruja and the Setites within the areas that she surveils. So, what I want you to do is step in and stabilize this situation. I trust you as a fellow Ventru and clanmate, and I know that you have skills that will prove useful for the various agendas with which we require your assistance. Of course, you'll be compensated adequately for all your time and effort.
Very well, Sheriff. Is there a possibility that I could meet up with the Shad that you're talking about and get a better idea of the manuscript that they stole? I need to take notes so I can attempt to locate that as well. I'll keep my eye on the Setites. I've got very poor opinions of them myself, as you know, and the Ravenos and the Bruja, wild beasts that they are. You can tell the harpy that I'd be happy to get involved.
David smiles and nods, and as he does so, the woman seated on his left side stands up and hands you a dossier containing photographs and phone numbers, last known locations for the various parties discussed, and all the intelligence available, as well as the contact information for Shad Viano Feroth, the Tremere Ancile, and his exact location at the University of Cascadia in the Occult Library Division. He says he'll be expecting you. Do you require any further assistance from me in these matters?
I've got your number. If I need you, I'll reach out, and I'll keep an eye out for the Mike Williams as well. I'll keep my ear to the ground.
He nods and says, "Excellent. We appreciate your discretion, and your assistance is appreciated."
Of course.
So he makes available to you his chauffeur and limousine, unless you have your own vehicle that you prefer to use. Do you have your own vehicle?
Nope. I'll gladly ride along.
Okay. So Shad, you are in your office at the University of Cascadia, and you wake from your night's slumber and dreams of the past, people and places long faded away. Disappear like cobwebs as you awaken to another night, the first day of July 2027 in Cascadia City.
I wake, slowly rising from my bed and looking longingly over at the staff that I failed to create. One of the 3 books I received was a book for an enchanted talisman, but I didn't succeed in the first cut of it. So I leave the staff as it is, a few carvings cut into it on the wall, and go over to my large desk where stacks of books sit in front of me. Finally, I think. I've got the time to sit with my notes. There are several groups of notes, some academic work for the university front of the masquerade for my classes, lowest priority. Next is some research that the Tremere is having me do. It's long dated and kind of second lowest priority. And then my goal, which is compiling the notes from one of the 2 books that I still have, along with the notes that I received that I took at the museum, the Toreador Museum, where I met Elizabeth Fairbrooks in the secret exhibit. So I get to work compiling and cross-referencing, translating and studying these notes to see if there's anything pertaining to the Book of Nod in particular, or whatever other secrets they may hold.
Okay. Do you want to roll an occult roll or an investigation roll in order to try and discern further insights from these books?
Sure. Let me get to the roll channel.
Let's say that you need a 7 for a success, and the more successes you have, the more you'll be able to deduce from these manuscripts.
Was that an occult plus investigation, or either?
Yeah, you can roll occult plus investigation.
And DC
7.
Success.
How many successes?
2.
2. So you sit down and pore over the manuscripts, and you compare them to other texts that you're familiar with, and apply exegetical and hermeneutical and archaeological analysis. And you're able to deduce that these ancient Middle Eastern texts and carvings tell of a creation myth. They tell of a cosmic god king or hero character, as well as a primordial serpent of chaos, and the battle between these 2 entities. And parts of the manuscript are damaged, and parts of it use words that you can't understand. But basically there's some kind of cosmic dualism between this serpent of darkness and this heroic culture hero of light, who in this, you're not sure, but it seems that he may be associated with Cain, but you're unsure of that conclusion. But combined with the statue that you saw, this seems to tell of some kind of primordial battle between good and evil, and between this hero character and this cosmic serpent.
Now, am I aware that this was written by Kindred or Kine?
Well, based on the context of the lore, you're assuming that this is probably written by Kindred.
I kind of crack my knuckles and lean back at this realization. How strange. In all the myths, Cain is seldom shown as a figure of light. Interesting. I jot my notes down and write some of my thoughts in the margins about potential sources of these writings and other kind of notes to follow up with, other resources to cross-reference.
Okay, so you notice that your phone has a message, a voicemail that's been left while you were slumbering that has not yet been checked.
I roll my eyes and say to myself, well, I suppose we all have our responsibilities. Shutting the book on my notes, putting them in my calfskin bag, and putting it squarely on my body. I go to my phone and listen to the message.
So you recognize the message by a special code word as coming from the higher-ups within your Tremere chantry, responding to the intelligence that you gave them that Oliver had been killed, and that the Sabbat and Anarch or Bruja iconography had been painted in blood on his wall, and that the book had been stolen. And the message, which is all in code, a special code that you know how to decipher, is telling you to tread carefully, and that the intelligence of the Tremere and the scrying that's been done magically indicates that this crime is most likely committed by Bruja and Nosferatu anti-tribu of the Sabbat, operating out of the north end of the city. But that's all the information that they have. And they want you to, if possible, retrieve the lost manuscript and, if possible, avenge the murder of Oliver.
Anti-tribu of the Sabbat, meaning they are Sabbat that have defected, or they have defected to
Meaning
Sabbat?
they're Nosferatu and Bruja Sabbat members, anti-tribus who have betrayed the Camarilla and joined the Sabbat, operating out of the northern quarter of the city.
I kind of like look in the direction of Oliver's office across the hall and think to myself, well, he was a worthy rival, but at least he's out of my hair for now. And that book, I'm glad I only trusted him with that one and not these two, but I suppose I should track them down, I say as I kind of get ready and begin heading back to the Pyramid nightclub, calling Sid Rogers on my way.
So you're walking to the Pyramid nightclub?
Yep.
Okay, so you head out into the evening. It is a hot summer day that has faded into a warm but pleasant summer night. And as you walk towards the Pyramid nightclub, which you've frequented so many times, you phone your compatriot Sid Rogers. Sid, you are in the dormitories of the Cascadia University Arts Program. If you want, you can describe your environment. What is it like where you are? You there, Sid? Dude missile? Okay. Well, regardless...
Hello?
Yeah,
Sorry,
you
hello?
there?
Yeah, sorry. My mom was talking to me.
No worries.
Go ahead.
So, describe where you are, right? You're in the campus dormitories as an art student. Just describe your environment where you live.
Yeah, so Sid, so at the Cascadia University, I assume. Oh, one second. Hello.
Hello?
Okay. So I assume Cascadia University would work similar to like your average university, where, you know, if he needs to paint, he goes to the studio. He goes to like the art class studio, and they have all the supplies and stuff there, right? So his dorm is just like a sort of regular dorm. He's got like a laptop in there, and basically just a laptop, his dresser where he's got all his clothes, and a bed, more or less. Pretty bare bones.
Okay. So you are in the environment you have just described, and your cell phone is ringing.
I pick it up.
Good. This is Shad. How are you?
Yeah. Oh, I'm all right. I'm just working on an animation right now.
Oh, that's great. Tell me more about it.
It's just sort of a surrealist, more so sort of like a visual eye candy. Not telling a story or anything, just trying to create some interesting sort of psychedelic visuals, you know.
And now you're having writer's block, I assume.
No, I'm just I'm on the grind. You know, you gotta. Do you know how much work? Do you know how many keyframes you gotta do to make an animation? It's ridiculous. Is everything okay?
I actually don't know. I'm not much of a technology person myself, but perhaps I can offer you some assistance in the way of creativity. I'm heading back to the Pyramid nightclub and hoping to run into Lucy or Sarah there, and as far as psychedelics go, they're broadly available. I even know a friend that's selling some. Would you care to join me?
Not for necessarily those reasons, but yeah, sure, I'll join.
Oh, great.
So
I did not mean to presume too much, but I'll meet you there.
Okay.
Click.
And as I hang up my phone, what time of year is it, Shogun?
It's July 1st, 2027.
Okay, so can we assume that I'd be? I mean, I know that would be sort of late for doing this, but I just want to establish that I am signing up for Shad's history course at the university for my next semester. So can we?
Okay.
Can we assume either I'm doing that or I've done that?
Yeah, why not?
Okay.
For the false.
Yeah, exactly. And then I this time I get into my character sort of goes to his dresser. He's sort of in his boxers right now, and he goes to his dresser, and he picks out a pair of pants that have been cut off at the leg, around the knee, but they're a little bit more appropriate than pajamas. And he gets into that. He puts on a t-shirt. He gets on a hoodie, and he starts to head out to the pyramid.
All right, so the two of you are both converging through separate routes, walking to the Pyramid nightclub, popular on the Corden aspect, the upscale aspect of the city, or area of the city. We will assume that neither of you encounter anything unusual on your walk. You pass a few passers-by who smile at you, but you don't see or encounter anything out of the ordinary. Shad arrives first, but waiting for him when he arrives at the nightclub is a limousine parked out in front. And in that limousine's back seat is Mr. Kalen Clark, who has already been provided with Shad's image and therefore recognizes Shad when he arrives. And Shad, this is going back a moment, but you receive a phone call as you are walking to the Pyramid nightclub.
I answer.
On the other end of the phone is the familiar voice of David Wingate. Again, he sounds irritable somewhat. And he calls you to account for the escalating chaos of the situation. He says 2 people have been murdered in Wildwood Park under suspicious circumstances, and accounts from his intelligence report the blatant conflagration of Tremere blood magic being used against some petty thugs, which required the exsanguination of some bystanders in order to protect the masquerade. And essentially, he expresses his dissatisfaction with the lack of progress on the Michael Williams situation, as well as the overall escalation in bloodshed within Cascadia City. And so he informs you that he has assigned an additional assistant to help you stabilize the situation. A Ventru of his own clan by the name of Kalen Clark, who is awaiting you at the Pyramid nightclub. And you are to trust him and obey him in all respects as a emissary of the prince himself, Mr. Govind Singh. And so this is explained to you, and then the line simply goes dead.
I pocket the phone and continue walking towards the nightclub in the still night.
Okay, so describe what you're wearing, I suppose, just for this particular scene, Shad.
Sure, I'm wearing what I usually wear, minus the thick trench coat, given that it's not the coolest of nights, but charcoal gray, a navy blue suit with a collegiate striped tie, white undershirt, and a black calfskin laptop bag.
All right, so Kalen Clark, you see Shad walking up to the Pyramid nightclub, and the driver kind of looks back at you and nods.
Should I? Let's see here. I'll roll the window down and kind of whistle at him. Shad,
I raise an eyebrow.
Shad Vieranov. Vieranofra? How do you say that?
Vinoferoth or Vinoferoth.
Vinaferoth. Shad Vinaferoth, I presume. Callan Clark, pleasure. Come over here if you wouldn't mind talking to me for a minute.
I'm waiting on somebody. Perhaps I kind of look sideways around him into the limousine. You could come out here.
What I've got to say is a little bit sensitive, and I believe you're waiting on me. You've gotten a call from the sheriff, I presume?
Ah. Okay. I say, and I enter the vehicle.
Yeah, I've been informed you've been on the receiving end of a series of some unfortunate events at Chashantry. Generally, I work alone, but at the request of the sheriff, I've made myself available to join you in pursuing the offenders and perhaps delivering some justice one way or the other. Nod at him. Does this interest to you?
Sure, certainly. The resources of the Masquerade and the Ivory Tower, particularly of the Ventrue, would be of great assistance here. I can't help but feeling like there's a lot going on that I'm not aware of, candidly, but my role as an agent of the Masquerade does not require that I know everything. Just the one thing that I have asked David, and will now ask you, is don't lie to me.
Ah, yes, if you share that respect with me, it'll be a courtesy I'm pleased to give you as well.
Great. I'm here following up on a request. Following up on a deal that I made with Jessica from the clan of Set. She's to arrange a meeting between myself and one King Rat.
The Setites. I don't have very many good dealings with them. If you need my company with that, I'll keep myself at a distance, but believe me, I'll be within earshot.
That would be great. I don't know if you need to be away from me necessarily. A good show of force might actually be helpful. Who knows what they have up their sleeves. This meeting did come at a cost, though. I'm waiting for a young student from Cascadia University, and I plan to hand him over to the Setites. And on top of that, there's a little bit more to worry about than just our lizard friends. King Rat is Nosferatu anti-tribute, and he may be the Diablerist responsible for Oliver's disappearance.
On second thought, then I'd be glad to be right by your side.
Well, great. He should be here any minute. His name is Sid Rogers.
As if on cue, a young man on foot approaches the parking lot of the Pyramid where your limousine is parked and where you're having this conversation in the privacy of the back seat. Sid Rogers, you approach, you see a line of patrons waiting to enter, all following the dress code, well-dressed, young, beautiful people waiting, the music playing, clearly audible from outside, the security guards, and among other expensive cars.
One moment, guys. I gotta do something real quick.
Okay. Regardless, I'm going to continue the narrative. Among the other expensive cars parked in front of the nightclub is a black limousine.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry.
Yeah. So anyways, you approach the Pyramid nightclub, you see several expensive designer cars, luxury cars parked in front, as well as a long black limousine with tinted windows.
I would like to point out right now, I definitely approached the well, do I see Shad there?
You can't see inside the limousine because the windows are tinted. However, Shad and Kaylin Clark see you.
Okay. Well, I'm just gonna hang around and look for Shad, and I would like to establish right now that these like black shorts that my character is wearing, they've got like they're sort of Hot Topic-esque, and they've got like zippers on the knees that don't open into pockets, just in case anyone wants to make fun of them later. But yeah, go ahead. I just sort of stand around and look for Shad.
Yeah, seeing Sid approach, I hop out of the vehicle and leave the door open behind me with kind of arms wide open. Ah, Sid, it's so great that you made it out. I hope you're ready for a night of fun. Perhaps you college kids will be able to party a little bit harder than I can, but nonetheless, should we go in?
Yeah, if that's what you want to do.
I'll
I
hop on
assume-
as well, and I'll say, Sid, Callan, pleasure. I'm here to accompany you this evening.
I say, and I look at Shad and I go, man, you vampires really network quite well. It's really amazing.
I kind of like look side to side and a little bit wide-eyed, startled. About that. You may have heard some things. As far as anybody knows, there's no such thing as vampires.
And I sort of go wide-eyed and my mouth like I go and I sort of wink at him and I go, I gotcha.
Great.
I'll say, yeah, you do well to keep that to yourself.
But on that note, I do have a friend of the kindred, as we say, that would really like to meet you. Her name is Jessica.
Okay. Is she gonna suck my blood?
Well, your blood's maybe not the only thing, I say as I kind of yank a elbow into his side. But no, she's friendly.
I get sort of like what are you planning here? Kind of look on my face, but in like a trusting way. It's like you know your friend's up to something, but you don't distrust them kind of look.
Right. So we go in.
Okay, so you bypass the line. The security clearly recognizes all three of you, and you're quickly ushered in through the VIP entrance. As always, there is a high-energy electronic music set playing. The person on stage is a man you don't recognize with short blonde hair who's jumping up and down with his hands in the air playing his set. The audience is in full swing. It's packed. People are dancing. You can tell that there's just like an energy. People are, high as usual. You can tell that people have wide pupils, and you can tell a lot of people are using drugs in here, although not everybody. And as before, there's a semicircle of VIP booths elevated above the main dance floor area. And in one of those VIP booths, in particular the second to the left out of the 4 VIP booths, is seated Jessica, the woman that you saw previously with the black hair and the white. She's wearing a tight white cocktail dress, and she has the serpentine tattoos. Her black hair is sort of tied up in like a ponytail type thing, Asian style. She actually looks, perhaps half Asian. You're not quite sure. Quite attractive. Regardless, she's sitting there with a man who is bald, who is wearing a white tuxedo and has black circular sunglasses on, and he also has serpent tattoos, although his are on his head, whereas hers lined up her arm and onto her neck. They are clearly looking at you, right, and making no effort to disguise that they're watching you. You also see on the other side your friend Sarah Fairbrook, sitting with some of her friends in a VIP section with bottles and drinks on the table in front of them. And she also looks over and smiles at you guys as you come in.
I kind of wave quickly and turn away, kind of holding Sid by the wrist and moving towards the dance floor. Stick close. There's a lot of plots going on right now, and I don't want you to fall into any of them.
So you notice standing in the back corner of the room a group of individuals who are all wearing matching black leather jackets and motorcycle jacket type patches that say Cascadia Warriors on the back, and you recognize them as some kind of gang members, and one of them kind of looks up at you with like a hostile gaze, but most of them are just drinking shots and in the corner. But you recognize that there's like a small contingent of a motorcycle gang called the Cascadia Warriors in the corner. There's 4 of them.
I'd stay on the dance floor with Sid and try to distract him by pointing him to several women and people on the dance floor, like, hey, do you see that one? She's pretty cute, huh? And meanwhile, I'm keeping an eye out for Jessica, the drug peddling set height.
Well, you already saw her in the VIP section, sitting beside the bald man with the circular black glasses and the head tattoo.
Right, I'm looking for her out on the dance floor like she was before. If I can kind of make eye contact to her, and get her to come over here rather than me go over there.
Okay. So
I'm trying to get casual encounter with her.
You look over to her in the VIP section and you exchange a knowing look, and she nods very subtly, so subtly that you can barely perceive the gesture. She sips her drink and makes a comment to the person sitting behind her, or beside her, who laughs, another, attractive young woman about her age. She makes a comment, and then after a moment she rises and gracefully, with an almost serpentine grace, you might say, winds her way out onto the dance floor and very naturally begins dancing in perfect synchronization with the music, and very casually and indirectly works her way towards you and sit on the dance floor.
I kind of approach her the same way, dancing mostly footwork, upper body actually not moving that much, but kind of motion to Cal. Is that his name? Cal? Is that your name?
Mm-hmm. Callan.
Cal to stay by Sid, and I kind of go up to her to talk to her one-on-one on the dance floor.
I'll walk up and put a hand and an arm across Sid's shoulder and give him a good squeeze as if to stay still.
All right, so
I say, wait. I say, whoa, buddy, what are you doing there?
Don't worry, I'm not here to take advantage of you. I'm just here to keep you safe.
Okay.
So Jessica dances her way through the crowd until she is dancing side by side with Shad, while Sid Rogers is off to the side a few feet away with Kaelin's arm around his shoulder. And so she looks at you with a meaningful expectancy and a questioning look in her eye, and kind of raises an eyebrow and gestures ever so slightly with her hand towards Sid.
I put up one finger and kind of continue dancing. Say, Jessica, so good to see you. What are we pushing tonight?
She smiles and says the usual favorites, MDMA, ketamine, and cocaine, the combination of which is called Calvin Klein and is currently in vogue with the Children of Ecstasy and their set. And she gestures to a group of young people. They look like probably, college students in their first years of college, dancing very frantically, and other ones who are kind of passed out in like a little lounge area. So she gestures at them, and so she indicates that those are the three things that she's selling tonight.
I ask for a couple hits.
She smiles and says, a couple hits of what, sweetheart?
Calvin Klein is like one with all of them in it, right?
Calvin Klein is a mix of ketamine and cocaine.
Yeah, one of those. A couple of those, actually.
She reaches into her bra with her right hand and pulls out 3 bags of white powder, which she passes into your hand with a smile and says, have fun. It's pure as the driven snow.
Excellent, thanks. And how many was in there? 3?
There's 3 bags, each of which are about halfway full of white powder. You're not sure how much, but it looks like a fairly substantial amount's been given to you.
Oh, nice. Okay. Well, I thank her and say, as you see, I've brought my part of the bargain. Any luck tracking down the rat?
She smiles and says, there's very little that happens in this city that this clan of the Serpent is not aware of. The Nosferatu and the Toreador fancy themselves the experts of information, but our network was ancient before they even began to play at jihad. We know everything that happens in the shadows, and we own the night, at least as far as the vice industry goes. She smiles and says, the Nosferatu, as is their way of their unfortunate kind, prefer to stay out of sight, favoring the sewers underneath the city. There is a elaborate network of sewer systems underneath Cascadia City, old abandoned railway lines, tunnels, abandoned basements connected, and the Nosferatu make their lair down there. We're not sure if they have a central base, but we know they operate out of the sewer systems. And I can arrange a meeting between you and King Rat in an agreed upon location. But if I do so, the agreement will be under my guarantee, which means there can be no foul play, no double crossing, no violence. All I can promise you is a meeting, and in exchange, I require Sid Rogers for at least 24 hours. He smiles, or she smiles with like a strange look in her eye.
That's acceptable. I'm glad to hear that my faith was placed in the right group. Sid, as you can see, is here by his own volition. He's a ghoul for some of our friends, and you need not worry about him being lost. He'll come at our beck and call and be available when the meeting is set up.
I'll walk over with Sid.
She says to Shad as you cross the floor towards them, there's one more thing, though. In my clan, we have a very ancient system of honor. And if I do a favor for you, it means that you owe us a favor, which we can call in at some point in the future. Do you agree to these terms?
Well, only if it's on par. These 3 bags of drugs I can just hand back to you. It's no problem, I say with a wink as Sid approaches. But yes, I'll owe you one.
She nods and says, very well. When do you want me to set up the meeting?
As quickly as possible.
She says, very well. 4 hours in the docks district. And she hands you a piece of paper with an address on it and a GPS coordinate. And you recognize it as the port district on the west coast, where shipping and receiving comes in and out, and where there is also a sort of rough area of town where the dock workers and have bars and dive bars and things of that nature. And the area she's indicated is literally the docks, like where there's, number of fishing boats and so forth parked. So you're familiar with that area. She says, meet here in 4 hours.
I turn towards Sid and say, Sid, this is the Jessica that I've spoken to you about. Isn't she attractive?
And I say, yeah, I guess.
She's invited us to an after party at the docks. It's supposed to be quite the shindig.
Can I do like a sense motive type thing here to try and figure out if he's lying?
Sure, you can, I guess, make some kind of contested roll. So why don't we have Shad roll like manipulation, and then we'll have Sid roll perception.
Can I add my subterfuge or anything to that?
You could add subterfuge to it, yeah.
Can I add wit?
Can you add wits? Sure, you can add wits. So both of you roll as a contested roll. And we'll say you both have the same difficulty of 7, and whoever gets the more successes will succeed at either, deceiving or detecting.
While they're doing that, I'll introduce myself. Jessica, I presume, Calvin Clark here. Pleasure to make your acquaintance.
She smiles at you with a beguiling beauty and kind of takes in your appearance with her strangely slitted eyes and smiles and says, a pleasure to meet you. Always a pleasure when I get to meet one of the Blue Bloods. And she smiles.
Very good, very good. Yeah, don't let my reputation get ahead of me. I'll nod towards the motorcycle gang and I'll say, friends of yours, I presume.
She says, no, I don't rub shoulders with that crowd. Those are Bruja, although their loyalty to the Camarilla is questionable at best. they fancy themselves some kind of rebels, revolutionaries, but really they're just common thugs and criminals, no more than puppets for the bourgeois in the city. Low generation, or weak-blooded vampires, barely kindred.
Ah, what a shame. Well, very good. Don't keep that company if you don't have to, you know what I mean?
All right, so real quick mechanic question. We're counting 10s as 2 successes, right?
Yeah, or a critical success, yeah.
Okay, because I rolled 3 1s and 2 10s, so that's net 1 success, right? And then another 8.
Well, no, if you rolled 3 1s and 2 10s, that's 3 critical failures and 2 critical successes. So that would be 1 success and then an extra failure, so...
Okay, well, I got an 8 as well. So
Right.
2 10s, 3 1s, and an 8.
Okay.
And then it had a 1 critical fail and 1 success.
All right. So essentially, you do get a slight feeling that maybe something is being left out or that Shad has some alternate motive, but ultimately you dismiss it as, you're probably being paranoid or whatever. It's nothing more than a passing feeling of unease.
Based on that, can I send Lucy a text?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so I send Lucy a text just saying, be asleep just in case.
Okay. So you fire off a text to Lucy that says, be asleep just in case. Anyways, Jessica looks at Sid and says, pleasure to meet you. You must be Shad's friend. The set is winding to a close, and the real party is going to be the after party. I hope you'll join us. And then she smiles and holds out a bag. She shows her 2 fingers.
Cut out.
Bag of white powder.
You're back.
You cut out there briefly.
Yeah, sorry, I got a phone call there for a second. So anyways, she offers you the bag of powder, Sid. She says, this is Calvin Klein. It's the best thing around.
I say, oh, thanks. I appreciate the offer, but I don't do any of that powdery stuff.
She smiles and shrugs and puts it back into her bra. Were you gonna say something?
No, I was. I think so, but I forgot it. So, yeah, go ahead.
I'm gonna ask her a question.
Go ahead.
Callan's gonna look at her and say, excuse me, sorry, just story plot thing here. Is she a Setite as well?
That is your understanding, yes.
Okay, never mind.
Yeah. So anyways, she takes Sid by the hand and she looks him in the eyes and says, trust me, you're not going to want to miss this party. I have a ride. You can come with me. And as she looks into your eyes, her pupils form into like serpent-like slits, and her eyes begin to kind of glow with like a golden light, and you begin to feel sort of dizzy. So go ahead and roll a willpower check with a difficulty of 9, and you'll need at least 1 success to resist her presence.
Who?
Okay.
Sid. She's looking at Sid in the eyes with her serpent eyes. And she's going to try and entrance you with her hypnotic serpentine gaze.
Chicken foot voodoo, come on! Nope, 2 and a 5.
So you try to resist as you feel this warm, fuzzy dizziness, but her eyes are just so hypnotic, and she suddenly looks just like mesmerizingly beautiful, and you just kind of become like doughy and limp, and you, as she takes your hand, you follow her like a docile sheep, just, feeling this like happiness to be in her presence as she leads you towards the exit. And she looks back at Shad and Kaylin as though, like, are you coming?
We've got our own ride. Sid will come with us, though.
She looks at you with sort of like a puzzlement and says, well, are you sure? I think he wants to come with me. We can meet you there at the location we agreed.
No deal. Not what we agreed on.
She looks at you
with... I need to meet the rat first.
Do I hear this?
Yes, but you're still in this sort of entranced state. So you hear what he's saying, but somehow you're just staring at this beautiful Jessica woman with her alabaster skin and her black hair and dark eyes that are now glowing with gold and serpent slits. And so you're in a hypnotized state. But anyways, she looks at Shad with irritation, and for a moment you see a serpentine tongue with a fork flick out from between fangs as she kind of glares at you. But she says, very well, I will meet you at the agreed upon location. Be there precisely 4 hours from now. And bear no weapons, and this meeting is under my guarantee of safety, so you may not, under any circumstances, violate the domain of King Rat. This is a diplomatic meeting under my protection.
No, certainly not. I wouldn't dream of it.
She nods and gets out her phone and presses a few buttons, and all of a sudden your phone vibrates and you see it lights up with a tag, a geotag, indicating the exact meeting place. And she kind of narrows her eyes and kind of glares at you, and then looks at Sid and smiles at him with like a predatory smile, and then turns and kind of weaves back into the crowd, leaving you guys behind.
Before she goes, can I ask her a question?
So we'll assume you kind of reach out and touch her arm as she's leaving, and she turns back and looks at you and says, yes?
Yes, I couldn't help but hear earlier you said the Clan of the Serpent hears about many things, keeping their ears to the ground and things among those sort. Have you heard about any activity among the Sabbat lately?
She smiles and nods and says, indeed, the savages have been more precocious and aggressive as of late. They smell blood in the air like sharks. They're attracted to the thrashing and weakness that the Camarilla is showing right now. They sense confusion among the ranks, and they, as always, seek to profit off of the chaos. What their designs are, well, that's open to interpretation. But there have been a rash of violent murders in the north end of the city, which are, our intelligence tells us, is Sabbat packs hunting and leaving bodies exsanguinated, keeping our masquerade enforcers busy cleaning up their mess and bribing and silencing the news media to suppress the stories. We're blaming the murders on fentanyl overdoses, but in reality, the Sabbat packs are becoming more open in their predations, straining the masquerade. And furthermore, our intelligence tells us that they are aggressively seeking to recruit any Camarilla members or independent clans who show any lack of loyalty or susceptibility to corruption. She says, but such information comes with a price. She smiles and says, I expect that when I ask you a question, you'll give me a truthful answer as well in return.
Presuming I've got the information you're looking for, I'd be willing to consider that arrangement.
She nods and says, there's little else I can tell you. I have other business to attend to. And she turns and weaves through the crowd and disappears. As she's leaving, Shad, you feel a touch on your shoulder and turn around to see none other than your old friend Sarah Fairbrook, a beautiful girl with blonde hair, smiling and says, Shad, how are you?
I am doing well. Ready to party. Quick game mechanic question. We can spend a point of blood to actually use drugs and stuff, right?
Yeah, you can spend a point of blood to activate your human metabolism in order to eat food or consume alcohol. I believe that you therefore could also consume drugs, but usually the way that it's done is that you get a kind to take drugs and then drink their blood. But I suppose you could spend a blood point to do it directly.
So I know this is a little unorthodox, but I'm having so much fun tonight. Would you like to join me? I say as I you see my skin flush. As I look more lively, and then just I just put my head down on the bag and flick a nice dose of the Calvin Klein into my dome.
So we'll say that you followed Sarah back to her VIP because you were on the dance floor, right? So, or did you put it on your back of your hand? Did you say?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. So you're on the dance floor and you put some of the Calvin Klein mixture on the back of your hand and snort it, and you feel an immediate rush of euphoria and energy combined with a strange, dissociative, almost psychedelic feeling that you can't put your finger on, but everything becomes very trippy looking, and dimensions and proportions sort of take on strange alterations. And the music becomes more intense and more captivating, and you feel, alive in a way that you haven't felt. You feel excited, but also entranced, and you can almost see patterns and movements in the air as the music, captivates you and you are dancing. Sarah smiles and extends her hand. Palm up, as though asking for some of the drugs.
I hand her an entire bag because I've got two, so I'll hand her the rest of the bag that I just used from.
So she leans over and kisses you on the cheek, and as she kisses you on the cheek, she very subtly and deftly palms the gram of Calvin Klein from your hand that you offer her. However, rather than snort it herself, she gestures with her head towards her VIP section and says, "Do you have a time to join me with your friends for a drink?"
So she's leaning in. I guess we're kind of dancing too a little bit on the dance floor still. I say, "Yeah, but while you're here, take some. My blood doesn't make thralls."
She tilts her head and, sort of quizzically, as you are offering, I suppose, your neck to her. But she smiles and just kind of shakes her head like she's declines the feed from you. But she indicates again that, she is inviting you to join her in her VIP booth, you and your friends.
Yeah, you're not half the fun I thought you were, Sarah. But of course, how could I refuse an invitation from the lovely Sarah Fairbrooks? And I kind of nod to the other guys. Hey, VIP section.
All right.
I follow.
So the group follows you up the set of stairs behind the velvet red rope and the two security guards to sit down beside Sarah and her two friends, both attractive young ladies, one with brown hair and green eyes. A second one also has blonde hair and blue eyes like Sarah, but they're both sitting with her on either side of her. And she gestures for you guys to join them at the circular table. It's like a circle table with a circular seat alcove around. Anyways, as you guys sit down, Sarah takes the gram of drugs that Shad gave to her and puts some out on the table in front of her behind a bottle of vodka and some drinks, so it's kind of concealed from public view. And she pours some out and then takes out a black titanium credit card and chops up 3 big lines and offers a little straw to her friends, both of whom eagerly snort the lines that are given to them. And Sarah takes the straw and snorts the 3rd line. And you immediately see the 2 girls on either side of her kind of slump over on her, kind of leaning their heads on her shoulder, and their pupils get really big. And they, one of them becomes very sort of animated, and the other one's kind of closing her eyes and sleeping on Sarah's shoulder. But anyways, she smiles at Shad and then begins making out with the girl who is more animated. the one with black hair, and they're kissing and sort of making out for a little while, and then she turns to the girl who's slumped over on her shoulder and appears to be making out with her as well, kissing her on the neck, but from where you are, you can see she's actually subtly feeding on that girl and drinking some of her blood before licking the wound to seal it back up. And when she looks up at you and smiles, you notice that her pupils have also dilated as she looks at you.
I wink at her and then kind of announce to the whole group of us sitting here. Well, what a treat. Another night with the great Sarah Fairbrooks. Come join us. I motion to Dude and Gal. Then I asked Sarah, do you mind? If, like saying, do you mind if Cal feeds on one of these two girls too?
She smiles and simply nods in the affirmative. He says, be my guest.
I'll subtly shake my head no. Just got done eating my fair share earlier this evening. I think I'll pass, but feel free to join in the hedonism yourself.
Hey, I'm doing good now. You can see that my face is flushed and I'm looking far more human. There's even a little bit of color that's been restored to my hair. The roots are starting to be an amber color rather than the natural bone white or unnatural bone white that it usually is.
Sarah reaches over and touches your hand and says, I hate to be a buzzkill, but I'm afraid there is one thing I need to tell you before we enjoy the rest of the evening. My intelligence tells me you've been cozying up with the serpents, and I just need to warn you that every favor you receive from the serpents always comes with a catch. So be careful and don't trust them. And I have years all over this sanctuary, and I just need to warn you that if you're going into the territory of the Sabbat, and if you're going to meet King Rat, then you should be prepared for a trap. They are completely without honor, and they do not respect the rules of the masquerade, including the rules of hospitality. So don't go into the rat's nest unprepared. We don't know what his intentions are, but I cannot guarantee your safety if you decide to enter Sabbat territory under the guidance of the serpents. You might as well go into the lion's den covered in sheep blood.
Oh, don't worry. I wouldn't trust the set or those mongrels down in the sewers as far as I could burn them. But I am glad that you brought this up. Can you do a small favor for me? Hold on to my books. I know that they're after them. I'm walking in there with them. Not a small idea, I say, as I kind of take off my calfskin computer bag and hand it over to her. Lock them up tight. I feel like these are causing more issues than I would like to admit.
She looks at you for a moment and then takes the calfskin bag and places it beside her on the red leather of the VIP couch and says, I can take care of them for you. You don't need to worry. They'll be safe with me.
If you couldn't dance,
I hope so. An Ansel Tremere died over one of them, which I hope to get back from the rat. But on that note, I do hope to seek a way to spring the trap on themselves. I haven't found a way yet, but we could use a little bit more muscle, maybe.
She looks at you and says, there's one more thing you should know. The Bruja and the North End are supposed to be Camarilla's enforcers in that area of town, keeping control of the crime scene and keeping the various gangs and degenerate factions of the city under control. But our intelligence says that the Setites and the Sabbat have both made overtures to the already discontented Bruja, who are nominally rebellious at best.
suicide,
And just be careful. Don't trust the Bruja, because we're not sure that their loyalties are still where they should be. And so tread carefully. You know, the North End is a genuine hornet's nest.
Understood.
She says,
Well-
I can't offer you any more muscle. My game is information, and I have to at least maintain the illusion of neutrality as I operate this sanctuary. But if you ever need ears on the ground, you know who to ask.
Yeah, if you would keep your ears out for Michael Williams, we believe he's fled back to Cyrus, a renegade. If you could find any information about him, we'd appreciate that.
She smiles and says, yes, a rather sad case. A poor, love-struck young vampire, hopelessly enthralled by a blood bond, wandering back and forth through the depths of Wildwood Park, seeking a mistress who seems to have abandoned him, or perhaps simply takes pleasure in his wanderings. But our intelligence confirms that Michael Williams has been residing in Wildwood Park, hunting animals and scratching by, surviving within the depth of Cagliostro's domain. We're still not sure what, if anything, the old Gangrel is up to, but Alitu seems to be hunting with impunity and treating Michael Williams with disdain. I'm
Very
afraid
good.
I can't give you any more information.
Wildwood Park. Cheers. We should possibly stop there quickly before our meeting. We wouldn't want anybody ruining the masquerade.
She says, the Gangrel sleep in the mud and in the earth, and so they don't keep a specific home, but they want anywhere within their territory. But the deeper within the Wildwood Park you go, the more likely you're to find them. But be careful, because our intelligence tells us there are also other potentially interested factions that work in that area of the city, some of which could be hostile and dangerous.
Thank you very much for that information. Put it to good use.
She smiles and nods at you, and then begins kissing the girl with black hair again on the left of her. And meanwhile, one of her other friends is, making more lines of white powder on the table, and she offers it to, both Sid and Callan and Shad. She just kind of gestures to see if any of you want to do another line.
I hold up my hand in a I'll pass kind of motion.
A wise man. A wise man.
I've had my fill in besides. We're running short on time. Kind of motion to the other guys, let's get out of here.
Yes, let's.
She, kind of smiles at you and waves as you guys leave and make your way through the crowd. You exit the Pyramid nightclub, and the black limousine is still waiting with the driver. Is an African American man wearing a professional black, outfit. Is waiting for you, ready to take you anywhere you want to go.
I'll look at Shad and say, Shad, while Michael Williams may not be the most pressing matter, should we make it a point to stop by and see if we easily find him?
Well,
So we'll say at this time, right, you only have 2 more hours until you have to meet King Rat if you're to maintain your appointment that you made with Jessica.
as we're going to the limousine and having this conversation, I offer did the seat of honor in the front seat, because me and Callum have some business to discuss.
The what in the front seat?
Seat of honor, shotgun.
Okay, yeah. I'll say, okay, and I will sit in the front seat.
All right, and I motion to the driver to roll up the window so we can talk privately.
So the black partition window rolls up, and you have privacy in the back seat.
All right, so I tell Callum everything, which includes that I've been making this deal with the Setites. The other Toreador, Lucy, was really not in favor of this. She said there's something important about the kid, but I don't. As far as I can tell, he's just some weird kid that also might be a changeling, but that doesn't really I don't really care, other than it would be interesting to study him, but we've got more important things going on, like vampires in my own Chantry house being like Gablerized, potentially me being caught up in all of this. And as it comes to Michael, it's going to probably take longer because like only last night I was in their domain, violating their domain rights to the Wildwood Park by like burning down trees. And then there was like it's really hot right now too because they like murdered somebody over there. So plus I'm not even so sure that was good intelligence, because OMB, a Gangrel friend of ours who was there last night, didn't see any sign of him, wasn't able to get any information. So I'm doubting the veracity of the information that they have concerning his whereabouts. And I inform also sorry, hold on. I also inform you that King Rat came to recruit me, and he also offered the extension to Michael. So I'm not even so sure that that Michael is with the Gangrel anymore. He could be an anti-tribute at this point. That would make sense as to why everybody's like so freaked out about him. They're saying that it's because he like disobeyed an order of mine as an agent of the Masquerade, but that's like not adding up to me. So I'm thinking there's something else going on with Michael that we really don't know, and King Rat can probably tell us. Because not only is he an anti-tribute, he's a Nosferatu, and they're the real information traders, traffickers, like the best at it. So all that said, all that background out of the way, I'm asking you what we should do with the kid. Like right now, the plan is basically to make good on the deal, like bring him there, trade him, let them do whatever they want. They said they only need him for a day. Let them do whatever they want to him, and then, you know, he's like not our responsibility anymore.
I think I'll say that it's worth going and making contact. They have some information that I would like to get ironed out. If we could find out a little bit more about your Chantry and who was responsible, I think that would benefit us both. I obviously have no relationship to this young man, and if you see it fit to give him to these people in order to keep up your end of a bargain, I see no reason to stand in your way.
Okay. Well, he's gonna start asking questions at some point about where's this after party thing going on when we get there. So, what should we tell him?
You let me take care of that if we get there and he's non-compliant.
Okay. So the plan is to go down to the docks and meet with King Rat and try to get some information. It's very likely it will turn hostile. So, you know, make sure the driver's aware, and we're gonna need a solid escape plan.
We'll have the driver drive away as if dropping us off, but he'll circle back within 5 minutes. How does that sound?
That sounds good. Do you think the Venture can provide any additional resources, potentially? Maybe a boat?
I could contact the sheriff and give him the information that I've received this evening so far, and see if he's willing to provide any resources in this meeting, perhaps an escape route, or maybe a unsuspecting group to help us.
That sounds like a good idea. I am probably not in David's good graces right now, but as his agent, perhaps your request would fall on more receptive ears.
Yes, I can make a phone call, see what's available to us, at his discretion, of course. I'm doing him a favor, so hopefully he'd be able to support me in that effort.
Mm-hmm.
So, sorry, you're gonna phone the sheriff, David Wingate?
Right.
I got a question.
Mm-hmm.
How much longer are we gonna play tonight? I ask only because the one character who could potentially save my ass is not here today.
Well, we can play for as much longer as you guys want.
Okay, I'll keep playing if everyone wants to keep playing. I don't mind. I'm just saying, try not to get me killed if you can.
Am I the person that saves your ass?
Yes, you're the only person who.
I thought out of character, David told Callum to do something with the kid, but I forget what it was.
Well,
what's his name? Sid?
Yeah, Sid Rogers.
I don't think the sheriff said anything about that. He said something about
He's a changeling that the Toreador are like interested in or something.
I don't think they said he was a changeling. I think they just said he was significant and different.
Okay, I may have just missed that. I was writing down a bunch of notes and he was giving us that down.
Elizabeth Fairbrook did say to Lucy for sure, and I can't remember if anyone else was there, but that they should try and protect Sid if possible.
That's who it was, yeah.
Yeah, to Lucy. But
Yeah.
David didn't tell Callum that, did he?
No.
Okay.
I think I wrote
So
down
the Toreador, you already know, have an interest in the Changeling, and you also know that the followers of Set have an interest in him as well.
Yep. All right, so give David a call.
All right. I'll pull out
So
my phone.
you take out your cell phone, you dial the private number, David Wingate's direct line. The phone rings only once, and David answers. Mr. Clark, how may I help you?
Dave, good evening. I've come across a little bit of information, but I'm still having to verify some of these loose ends. I seem to be getting conflicting reports on a variety of issues. But tonight it seems Shad and I are going to have a meeting, supposedly with King Rat at the docks. On the occasion that it goes poorly, I was wondering if there might be some service you could offer, whether a boatman or maybe a few men who lie in wait to give us some support should we need it.
The line is silent for a few moments, and he says, I'll put police, some of my paid ghoul police, nearby, within short distance of the agreed upon meeting place, so that if you signal me or you need help, I can have two teams of police who are also my ghouls and henchmen on hand to help out if there is an outbreak of violence. However, I can't promise that that's going to help because in the lair of the Sabbat with King Rat, we don't know all of his resources. We don't know how many, ghouls or henchmen he has, and also be careful because the Nosferatu are masters of the discipline of obfuscation, which means that they can disguise themselves and even potentially turn invisible. So you're going to have to be on your toes, and the regular police that I can offer will only be of so much assistance.
I need a 5-minute bathroom break.
Okay. He says, I'm sorry I can't offer any additional assistance beyond that. You're going to need to tread carefully and trust no one. Least of all the Sabbat.
Very good. Does let's see here. Sheriff, have you heard anything about a Sid Rogers by chance?
There's a brief pause on the other end of the line, and he says, yes, our intelligence indicates that he was personally invited by Sarah Fairbrook to a exclusive gala at the Cascadia University, and our intelligence also indicates that he was abducted by a Ravnos mercenary operating within Cascadia City, who appears to have been paid off by the Children of Set. However, the Cyrus, or rather the scion of Elizabeth Fairbrook, Lucy Fairbrook, for reasons which are not entirely clear, rescued Sid and returned him to the Cascadia Art Gallery, from which we have deduced that the Toreador within the city seem to have a vested interest in Sid Rogers' continued well-being. Therefore, for diplomatic reasons, it would be best if no harm came to the boy. as it may create a further diplomatic issue with the Toreador and Elizabeth Fairbrooks faction in the city.
Very good. Well, with that information taken under advisement, I think part of what we're doing this evening would be to arrange a temporary stay for 24 hours with Sid and Jessica, I believe, the Setite. If you are going to have forces there to be of assistance to some degree or another, it may be worth having a patrol vehicle standing by to intercept him if they decide to take him from that place. That way we both hold up our end of the bargain and they aren't suspicious of us.
He says, unfortunately, you have the serpent by the tail right now, so you must be very careful. Traditionally, it is very poorly omened to make a deal with the Setites. They offer with one hand and take away with the other, and everything they do is, further leading you into their web of intrigue and deception. So don't trust the Setites any more than the Sabbat. Tread carefully. I'll have my units on hand to assist if they can, but ultimately you're going to need to be on your guard, as you'll be entering the domain not only of the Nosferatu, Anti-Tribu, King Rat, but also potentially of other independent factions which we may not even be aware of. We're not fully aware of all the moving pieces in this intrigue. We do know it centers partly around Sid Rogers, and basically.
Understood. And just one last thing I'd like to share with you. It seems as though the intel that I've received so far, my investigations, show that there's been a rash of violent murders in the North End City. Those bodies that have been blamed on fentanyl overdoses, if you weren't aware, it seems as though they've been insanguinated by the Sabbat, who are currently seeking to recruit as many Camarilla members as possible, as they sense some sort of blood in the water in our structures of government and leadership. But I'll get back to you when I have more details about some of the other inquiries you've made with me.
Understood. And remember, the protection extended to members of the Camarilla does not extend to members of the Sabbat or any treacherous independent clans who may be operating against the interests of the Ivory Tower and the Camarilla or the Masquerade in Cascadia City. So from the point of view of the Prince, and therefore the point of view of the Camarilla, every dead Sabbat or Sabbat henchman is a good thing. So be on your guard, and if you are able to strike a blow against the Sabbat in the city, the Prince will reward you for doing so.
Very good, and keep an eye on the Bruja that are supposed to be monitoring the north ends of the city. I've heard that they may have been propositioned by the Ravenos, potentially by the Setites, and their loyalties may be questionable.
Understood. I'm glad to have your eyes on this situation, Mr. Clark. I trust that you will represent my interests and the interests of the Prince in whatever matters you may encounter. If you require further information, you can call me, and my units will be standing by. If you send me a signal, the agreed upon signal, by text or any other method, then the units I have standing by will move in.
Very well.
So, what did he say?
He'll have units there on standby. It's not the greatest of forces, but it's better than just ourselves. It is in our best interest, though. It seems as though keeping this young man alive would be quite important to the Toreador, so we should see to it that he's not harmed, very specifically.
How do you propose doing that? No offense, but I can't help but feeling this whole thing is a Toreador plot against me in particular. I don't have all the pieces yet, but I'm very suspicious. I've seen these things play out for a long, long time. And I don't intend to end up like my erstwhile rival, Oliver.
I'm open to suggestions at this point. I think I'm better at gathering information than I am about coming up with plans on how to avoid something you've agreed to.
The kid's all there, and they said it was just for 24 hours anyway.
Understood. Well, as far as the Ventru are concerned, the Toreador are the ones who have the interest. I will, of course, do all I can to ensure his well-being, but if I fail, then I fail. Maybe a necessary casualty. Who knows?
I motioned to the driver to roll down the window and say, "Sid, are you excited about the party we're going to?"
And I just sort of say, I just sort of go, you're planning something, I think.
All right, I'll tell you. This isn't any normal party. Have you ever heard of some of the high society functions that politicians... There was a big break of this thing. Spirit cooking. I think they called it when it was revealed.
But I interrupt you and I go, hey, whoa, buddy, whoa, that's some satanic stuff right there.
Well, that it may be, but this is extremely high society, and people love rubbing elbows with artists. You're going to make great connections that will pay for your art with huge sums of money in order to get tax write-offs.
Can we do another sense motive thing here?
Well, we can assume at this point that due to the sequence of abductions that your character has already gone through, he's inherently suspicious of the situation. But
Okay.
because you've been through so much recently that you're starting to just be a little bit uncomfortable because you've already understood that these vampires
I'll
want
ask,
your blood.
Sid,
Okay.
Sid, are you aware of any reason why the Toreador might have an interest with you? Specifically, not vagaries.
Well, what's her name? Not Lucy or Sarah. The
Elizabeth.
So I say Elizabeth Fairbrook gave me a book, and judging based on the connotation of the conversation where she gave me this book, I would say it's probably that I'm probably like a changeling or something, some fairy thing, magic and elves and shit. She also drained some blood from me, and she said it was, I don't know, something like a delicacy. So I don't know. It's probably something to do with that.
My eyes narrowed knowingly as he explains that he might be a changeling, which I've pieced together seeing the book he was reading and the short few words that we exchanged. Can I do like an occult or academics roll or something to see if I know why specifically vampires would want changeling blood?
Sure. The difficulty will be 7, and every success will give you a little more information.
What should I roll for it?
Occult, I guess.
Okay.
I don't know. Maybe occult plus intelligence or something.
Ooh, nice.
1, 2, 3, 4 successes.
Alright, so combining your occult knowledge from being a librarian at the Tremere Occult Library with what you were able to deduce from your study of the book that Sid was carrying, combined with what you put together from your interactions with him, you begin to understand that he is a fae, a fairy, and that these beings are very rare and very difficult to find in the modern world. According to occult lore, they've sort of begun to fade out of the world. As humanity spreads, the fae become more elusive as human consciousness is antithetical to their magical existence. You are aware, furthermore, as a Tremere who is knowledgeable in blood magic, that there are significant occult properties to the blood of a changeling. So there are two primary reasons why the kindred may want a changeling. One, as he said, their blood is inherently hallucinogenic and inherently narcotic, so it has a euphoric and hallucinogenic effect to kindred when they drink changeling blood. They can sort of vicariously taste the magic, so to speak. So it's a very desirable, simply on that basis alone. But furthermore, there are certain rituals and occult spells and magical workings that require changeling blood. And since it's so rare, it's therefore also desired for that reason, for the purposes of various dark rituals and occult blood magics that require the blood of a changeling.
As I kind of piece these things together, I turn towards Callum and say, perhaps there's a little bit more than a conversation that we should do. I may be interested in what they're doing with the changeling.
What do you have in mind?
I pause for a moment. Have you ever thought about becoming an anti-tribute?
Are you asking me if I've considered being unloyal to the Camarilla?
Yes.
It hasn't crossed my mind up until this point. They serve my needs fairly well.
I've been offered several times, twice recently, to join them. They have great promise of occult power. It could be good for the Ivory Tower to understand what they're up to.
I've got a bit of a reputation. It might circulate rather quickly if it's found that I'm even in this situation. I may be able to do this as a cover with the sheriff. He might have knowledge of it, and it might keep me out of trouble, but I certainly wouldn't consider doing this actually.
Oh, of course, me neither, I say with a wide grin. But it may be useful to pretend for now. Let's see how deep we can go. That way we won't have to leave the kid out of our sight. And we can find out exactly what they're up to.
Very well. Won't be the first time I've gone undercover for an investigation. Now, should they suggest some sort of test of loyalty? Are you prepared to do what it takes?
Sure. I think so.
Well, may the ends be worth whatever it costs.
I nod. Turn up the music, Sid. Tonight is going to be a blast.
Yeah, and I turn up the music, and I think I actually, what is this, like a modern car?
Yeah, it's like a high-class limousine.
Okay, I like hook up to the music player with my phone and start playing like some like really thrashy like psychedelic rock.
The driver kind of looks at you guys quizzically, like, "Where to, gentlemen?"
I'm gonna say to the docks, and I'm gonna send the sheriff a text saying potentially going undercover. If you hear anything concerning, it's going according to plan.
I wanna jump in here.
And I'm gonna delete all the text messages, and I'm gonna delete his contact as I've committed his number to memory.
I want to turn around here and say, you know, I might be more useful if you guys let me in on the plan.
Okay. Apologies for the deception. You'll get used to it, hanging around with us. Here's what's going on. There are many powerful and dangerous people after your blood. They're enemies of the Camarilla and the Ivory Tower, which...
And I stop and I wait. I say, so the Camarilla, That's, for lack of a better term, they're the good guys?
Let's just call them our friends instead.
Okay.
So, our friends have very powerful enemies that want to disrupt the whole party that we've been running for a very, very long time. They're operating in the city and they want you. So we are going to go with you and pretend to join them.
Okay.
The alternative at this point is we could leave you there on your own. It's up to you.
Well, look, Elizabeth Fairbrook said you'd keep me safe, and I don't really have a lot of options, so I'm going to trust you. But please don't get me killed. If my blood is really so good, if you guys can keep me alive, maybe I'll even give you some of it, willingly. So let's just try and get through this together. I'm sure I can offer something to your little gang of goons here.
I would love the chance to study your blood. But for now, any of these latent powers that you may be discovering, I'm sure would be helpful at some point.
And for me, Chad speaks for himself, but while I have no interest in your blood personally, it benefits me not to see it spilled so soon. So you've got my protection for the moment.
Okay, and I face forward and I just watch the road as we drive on.
So the limousine is driving towards the docks area in the northern part of the city. You notice the, fairly abrupt deterioration of the urban environment as you pass the invisible boundary that demarcates the domain of the Bruja, at least nominally. But you know that the Bruja are either losing control of their territory to the Sabbat and independent clans, or perhaps are actually turning anti-tribute themselves. You're not sure which, but you've deduced this from your various sources of intelligence. And so you see various gang insignia tattooed on the walls and buildings. You see the Manitoba Warriors, the East Side gang various gang graffiti, so forth, as you enter the dock area, and you give the driver the specific coordinates that were given to you for the meetup, and he drives and pulls up on the docks, and you see that there is a party of sorts going on here. There are people drinking, there's music playing from a speaker that they have set up. There's probably about 15 or 20 people here. Most of them look pretty young. They look pretty rough, like a lot of leather jackets, a lot of, ripped up denim, a lot of like patches sewn onto people's clothing. They look like a rough crowd, a lot of tattoos, piercings, and the music is sort of this like very dark, sort of almost satanic industrial techno. With a really like dark vibe, and people are kind of partying here, and you can see people drinking open alcohol and bottles in brown bags and so forth. So there does indeed seem to be like a party going on here.
I actually take the initiative, and I open up the door. I get out of the car and I say, "Okay, I have an idea here. Follow me." And I say this to the two guys.
How about you let us know the idea first, and then we'll decide who's doing the following.
Okay, I say, I'm pretty sure I might be able to, if I can find an unconscious person, go into their dreams, and then maybe I can get us some useful information about this whole situation.
Their dreams?
Yeah.
It doesn't look like anyone here is sleeping.
It's a party. There's bound to be someone who drank too much, is keeled over somewhere.
If we could find someone in isolation, it's possible I could be of use in getting them to feel quite drowsy.
Well, yeah, maybe we can synergize like that then.
So as you guys are talking, you notice Jessica emerge out of the crowd of people, still wearing the same white cocktail dress as before, and she kind of smiles and waves at you. because I'm assuming you've stepped out of the car to have this conversation. And she says, "Oh, I'm so happy you could make it. Welcome to the after party." And to explain where you guys are, you're on the docks, and there's like a pier, and there's like long lengths of docks, and there's all kinds of boats parked there. There's like rich people's fishing boats, there's some small yachts, there's little fishing boats, but all of that is like just parked. And right now these young people are having this like sort of open air rave on the docks, and Jessica has come out of the crowd to, welcome you.
Jessica, thank you for the invitation. This place looks like a real blast. Our friend, can he meet us here in public?
She smiles and says, "Oh, he's already here. He's waiting for you. I can introduce you," she says, "but first, there's one matter to attend to." And she looks at Sid and says, "Won't you join me on the dance floor, Sid?"
Not so fast, Snake. The meeting first, then the kid.
She looks at you and says, "I have your word."
Indeed.
I'll look
She
at
nods and
I'll look at Chad and I'll say, perhaps Sid and I could grab a drink while you discuss matters with the rat. You can speak on my behalf as well.
That sounds like a plan. Enjoy yourselves.
Sid, I'm gonna look at Sid and I'm gonna put some emphasis on the word "come," and I'm gonna say, "Come with me," and I'm gonna make a roll for dominate.
No need. My character will just go on.
Okay.
all right, so Callan Clark and Sid Rogers excuse themselves and head to where a bar of sorts has been set up, and some of Jessica's minions offer you drinks. There's vodka and various bottles of hard alcohol set up on some crates, and basically you're given a drink, and people are partying, and you're served a drink. Jessica, meanwhile, indicates to Shad with a tilt of her head or a gesture of her head that he should follow her. And she leads you through the dancing people and through the crowd to the docks, and you walk out on the dock by yourselves till you see what is like a small yacht, like a luxury vehicle. Luxury boat, right? Not a yacht, but like a big, high-quality sports boat, essentially. And on it is sitting an individual that you immediately recognize as King Rat. And beside him, he's sitting down, and there's a table there, and he's got a circular, cocktail glass in front of him with a dark liquid in it. And there's two people standing on either side of him. Both of them are wearing trench coats, and both of them are holding what you can recognize as high quality, military grade, machine guns or submachine guns. They're small, compact, but these are not legal firearms. These are military grade submachine guns that both of these individuals standing on either side of him are holding, bodyguards, basically. And Jessica leads you here and indicates that this is where King Rat is. And then she says, "I will leave you to your meeting. Remember, you're under my guarantee, so let there be no blood spilt here." And then she turns and says, "I'll be waiting for you in the party when you're ready." She goes back to the party, leaving you on the dock in front of King Rat, his boat, and his two bodyguards.
Okay, gestures. As we were approaching, I'm using blood points to boost up all my stats, basically, and I can boost them to my generation -1. So, what am I doing? My dexterity, intelligence, and wits are all at 7, and that costs me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 blood points to do that.
So you're boosting your dexterity?
Yeah, dexterity, intelligence, and wits are all at 7.
Okay, so you channel your understanding of vitae magic and your powerful, lower generation blood in order to enhance your natural abilities of dexterity and what was the other one?
Intelligence and wits.
And intelligence, right. So you begin thinking much quicker, almost like you're on some kind of stimulant, which I guess you actually are with the cocaine, and ketamine still somewhat active in your system. Nevertheless, you boost your attributes to superhuman levels in preparation for your encounter with King Rat, who is looking at you expectantly and gestures that you should board his ship and sit on the white leather seats across from him.
I do so, and I recline, putting my hands up on either side of the long boat bench that I lie down, looking across the still water, reflecting the moonlight. I turn my head back towards the gruesome Nosferatu. Nice boat.
And you what, sorry?
I tell him, nice boat.
So, first of all, to describe him, he is bald, he has pointed ears, and very obvious buck-toothed fangs. Instead of the fangs being where the canines are on normal humans, the fangs in this case are at the front of his mouth, kind of like beaver teeth sticking down, but fangs. He has a noticeable unpleasant smell of sewage, and he's wearing what seem to be very dirty and soiled clothes. He's wearing a trench coat, but it's smells like sewage. He has a yellowish pallor to his skin. It's pale white with yellow blotches and bruises on the neck, and parts of his bald head have big bruised spots on them. He's very ugly. Nevertheless, he ignores your compliment on the boat and says, Shad Viano Feroth of Clan Tremere of the Chantry of Cascadia University. What brings you to this meeting? The Setites said that you wanted to parley. So what is it that I have that you want, and what do you have to offer me?
Well, we have much to discuss. In fact, I've been thinking more about your offer to join the Sabbat with you.
He tilts his head and says, You expect me to believe that a Camarilla lapdog Ancille from the usurper clan of the Tremere suddenly decides to turn tail and join the Sabbat, our little confederacy of nobles of the night, so easily? What would possibly sway you to do so?
Well, there's been much that's convinced me, I say, kind of looking at the back of my fingernails to affect an air of aloofness, and then look him straight in the eyes. I expect Oliver was no more than a mere attention-grabbing mechanism. I would like to see that book back someday, by the way, and I wait to see if he, responds as if he's acknowledging his role in that.
He looks at you and sort of seems to ignore your question, and he says, For thousands of years, your Camarilla has prided itself on its so-called masquerade. A veiled illusion, a curtain thrown across reality to conceal the truth from the kind, simply to make life easier for the elder vampires who already live on silken cushions and reside in palaces. Meanwhile, those of us, you, me, they treat us like expendable pawns in their greater jihad. You are wise to question the Camarilla, for they would discard you as an expendable resource as soon as they would give you a second glance. But the masquerade is falling apart. It's fraying at its edges as the jihad intensifies. Have you heard the prophecies?
Yes, and I'm glad you brought that up. I'm used to being an expendable resource and have always looked at my relationship with the Camarilla in kind. But they've outlived their usefulness in terms of my study. There's no more that I can learn, but the chantry houses of and libraries of the Sabbat have much more in the way of occult learnings that I feel like can benefit me to a much greater degree. As far as these theories on eschatology, I must profess I don't really hold to them. They're nice to think about, but underneath those stories, I believe there's deep, powerful magic to be uncovered.
He looks at you with his beady, rat-like eyes, sort of sniffs at the air, and smiles, and says, I can smell deception and dishonesty, but perhaps there is some truth to what you say. I can promise you that the archives at Miskatonic University rival and exceed anything that you have at Cascadia University. So if knowledge of the occult is indeed your price, it is a price that I can meet. However, I will not be so quick to introduce you to our Sabbat domains until I'm certain of your intentions. You are unwise to dismiss the prophecies, he says. Have you not heard that kindred of the 14th generation can walk under the sunlight and are bearing children? This is ancient prophecy from the Book of Nod being fulfilled now, in 2027, before our eyes. And what does the prophecy say will happen when the blood of Cain grows weak? And he looks at you expectantly.
That the antediluvians will rise and usher in a great new era of bloodlust for all. I'm not impressed. It is true that there are some daywalkers and that their blood is weak, not like yours or mine. But some end times prophecy associated with a few weaklings, I can't stomach it personally.
He says, perhaps you will learn in due time the folly of your naive and arrogant attitude. He says, greater minds than yours have studied the signs for generations, and they are coming to pass, whether you stick your head in the sand and ignore them, or face them head on, like us. The time to hide amongst the kind like scurrying rodents is past. Now is our chance, perhaps our last chance, to rise and seize what is ours by right. We are the lords of the night, and whether you accept it or not, the Camarilla in this city is growing weak. Prince Govind Singh's grip on the politics of the city is falling apart night by night. You and your compatriots have been part of that, and the independent clans are sniffing around, sensing weakness. The tides are turning, whether you like it or not. And when the final dice are thrown, you should stand beside us, strong, free, and proud, rather than spend your last nights scurrying around like lapdogs and minions of a Camarilla that sees you as no more than pawns in a game you can never win.
Perhaps deeper study of more veritable manuscripts would sway me in the belief of these eschatological prophecies. All I've had access to now are people's retellings of them and haven't studied the source material in depth. But I agree with your sentiment. It's not lost on me that the Camarilla is losing face. In fact, part of my reason for being here is I think that I am next up on the list of victims to cover for their failings, and I have no interest in ending up like my friend Oliver.
He looks at you, and you cannot read his inscrutable expression, which, you know, for lack of a better word, is truly rodent-like. And his eyes almost don't look human. They're just like black, like hamster eyes. So you can't read his expression. But he says, what precisely are you proposing?
I want to join you. I want to join you and the Sabbat. And I want to help bring down the Camarilla in the city.
He says, you answer the prince's calls like a faithful lapdog of the Tremere. Then you make a deal with the Setites, and everyone knows that that's a genuine devil's bargain. Now you come to me and say you wish to join the Sabbat. So which is it, little Tremere? Are you a lapdog of the Camarilla sent here as some kind of undercover agent, as though I was naive, as though I would fall for such an obvious ploy? Or have you sold your soul to the Setites? Or are you truly ready to rise up and embrace your destiny as a child of Cain and throw aside the shackles of the ivory tower? Why should I believe you, who seem to serve all masters and none?
Magic in my blood compels me to seek for more and more power. The Camarilla cannot provide that, and neither can the Setites, but the Sabbat, I'm willing to see.
He looks at you and says, "What you seek can be found in Arcadia City, not far to the west of Cascadia. There is a university called Miskatonic University. And that city, unlike this one, has rose up as one to throw aside the shackles of the Camarilla. That is a city where the Dark Lords rule unopposed. If you truly seek to join the Sabbat, then you must venture there and present yourself before the Prince of Arcadia City, a Lasombra, a true Elder of the Night. Then perhaps you will learn, if they accept you, what it really means to be a true child of Cain. But I, for one, doubt very much your sincerity. Nevertheless,
what can I do to alleviate your doubt? While I'm still here in the city, there's plenty that I can do for you.
He looks at you and says, "What precisely can you do for me, little Tremere?"
Well, first, I need to know, was it the Sabbat who killed my friend, Oliver? You, obviously, were in the Chantry House and tripped no alarms. You made it through all the magical barriers that we have set up. And I can only suppose you were after my books. I have a few more, plus my own theories and compilations of notes. Not to mention, you tried to swipe them from me at the club. Perhaps I can be a resource to the Sabbat to help gather all the notes and research that the Tremere Chantry House here has. I would also, of course, want to know who in the city I can trust. So essentially I'm offering him to work undercover while still in the city before I do go to the other city, and I will introduce myself to the priest, to the prince, but want to make sure I'm well ingratiated and have some friends on that side first. I really don't want to just go walk in there and be like, "Hi," and then they just kill me or whatever. So I'm seeking for some assurance myself through some mutual, kind of faith testing work.
So King Rat looks at you and says, "Your clanmate Oliver was an unfortunate casualty in a war that has only entered its opening phases. And it seems that the Camarilla and this city remain blissfully ignorant of the true magnitude of what is unfolding. Nevertheless, if you wish to make a sign or gesture of your newfound loyalty to the Sabbat, you could begin by delivering to me the two other texts that recently came into your possession, those that contain fragments of the Book of Nod and the ancient Assyrian translations. In addition, you can provide me intelligence about the operations of the Camarilla and the various strategies and agendas of the Ivory Tower, such as you may have access to. And furthermore, we will expect you to fulfill any favors or duties we require of you in the future as they should come up. But nevertheless, it is not up to me whether or not you are accepted into the Sabbat. You must present yourself in Arcadia City to the prince to be truly accepted as one of us. But I will give you one more piece of information. Those in the Ivory Tower keep the lion's share of power and wealth for themselves, and they give only scraps to their servants, especially those of the Bruja. Long have they fostered discontent, and the problem with mercenaries is they always work for the highest bidder. It's not clear in Cascadia City that the Camarilla occupies that role. The Setites have deep pockets and dark machinations for the city, and they have been leading some members of the Bruja to turn against the Camarilla. He says, meanwhile, the Gangrel grow aloof and distant and unresponsive to the requests of the prince. We're as of yet unsure what Cagliostro's plans are, if any, but to call him a servant of the Camarilla now is questionable at best. The structure of power in this city is like a house of cards. If we pull the right card, the whole structure will come down, and this city will be ripe for a Sabbat takeover. If you truly wish to join us and experience freedom for the first time in your wretched life, then be prepared to move when we tell you to move, but expect blood, lots of it.
I am prepared. Where can I deliver the books to?
Sorry, say that again?
I'm asking where he wants the books delivered that he just requested.
He says, I will send one of my ghouls to your chantry house. He will present you with a sign, and you will give the books to him if you are true to your intent.
Okay. I also inform him that there's another friend of mine who's really pretty powerful and is interested in... I haven't told him anything explicit, but he's dissatisfied with the power structure as well, and that I might bring him along at some point. I would really love to convert this guy over to my cause because he makes a good bodyguard, essentially, but what I really want to talk about to him now is, like, as a good show of faith, I'm going to give him these books, but I want him to tell me what's going on with the Setites, and I'll even tell him about the changeling that we have, and that they're about to do some ritual on it in line with my kind of desire to learn more occult magic. I want to know if he's aware of any Sabbat or Set anti-tribu that are sniffing around about changeling, just the kind of master of information that he is.
He says, the intelligence that I have indicates that a vampire bounty hunter by the name of, well, actually his name is unknown, but what we do know is that he's from the Ravnos clan. He uses different aliases in every city, but he is active in Cascadia City, and he had abducted Sid Rogers, working together with one of the Bruja who has turned anti-tribu. And in exchange for simple cash, on behalf of the Bruja, they handed Sid Rogers over to the Setites. What their intention was with him, even we can only speculate, but everyone knows that the Setites practice dark rituals, which some say date from before the flood. You know, they worship an ancient evil, and anything that they get their hands on can only be for malicious and evil intent. Rumors circulate about the Setites that they make soul contracts and buy people's souls, that they practice satanic ritual magic, that they sacrifice children and babies. The rumors are incredibly dark and, according to all of our information, most likely true. The serpents are an old evil, even by the standards of the Cainites, and they follow a dark and perverse path.
Well, my dealings with them are not quite done, as you've mentioned. I have gotten in bed with them in a way that, as you're aware, is hard to extricate from. It cost me a lot to meet with you, Raph, but would it be prudent for me to explain my desire to the Setite in this city to become an anti-tribu, or would that not be well received?
You're asking him if you should tell the Setites that you're converting to the Sabbat?
Yeah.
He looks at you and says, the serpents have their own intelligence network that has its tentacles deep in most aspects of the city. Whether you tell them or not, you should assume that they already know. They have eyes everywhere, even here. He nods knowingly and kind of looks over towards the party, and you follow his gaze, and you see Jessica standing there sort of looking at you in the distance.
I nod back knowingly. Well, I think we're squared away then. And if you could avoid bringing any more heat to the Chantry house, that would be great. I don't want my cover blown before I make the leap.
He looks at you and nods and says, very well, but let me give you one piece of advice that many kindred have learned over the centuries. Do not underestimate me or my clan. Do not play us for a fool. the Nosferatu have been playing the game of jihad for longer than you have walked this wretched earth. And if you betray us, we have ways of making you suffer. And an eternity of suffering is a long, long time indeed.
Betraying my new brethren? How could I think of it? I say warmly as I extend a hand, stand up.
He stands up and smiles, but you can't read his crooked and twisted expression. Nevertheless, he reaches out and shakes your hand, and as he does so, he crushes your hand. Like his grip is like a steel vice, and it's very painful. You can like hear your like bones crack, and he actually does damage your hand. Like he lets you feel that he has like incredible strength. He doesn't look strong. He looks like a scrawny, bald cancer patient, but when he squeezes your hand in the handshake, you feel it's like steel vice strong.
While this is going on, I'm gonna like respond with 1 point of fire damage. One like the lowest thaumaturgy thing. I'm not without my own strengths. I say as my hand like cracks, but like cinders, like ember-like cinders, burn into his palm.
He withdraws his hand with a hiss, and his eyes narrow with like pure malevolent anger for a second. And the two guards on either side, very quickly, like lightning fast, snap up their like submachine guns and aim them at your head. And for a moment, they're just like staring at you over the barrels of these guns. And he looks at you for like a long moment, and then he kind of raises his hand, and they put their guns back down to like a resting position. And he says, "Get off my boat."
I wave and turn quickly and walk off back into the party.
All right. So in the party, meanwhile, Callan Clark and Sid Rogers are both holding their drinks. It's like bourbon that you've been poured into like a plastic cup and given by a tattooed girl with lip rings and eyebrow rings who's serving as some kind of bartender. And you guys are, at the party as Shad returns to the group of dancing people at this like late night dockyard rave.
I'm gonna look around, and I'm gonna see if there's anybody who seems like they've been drinking, who may know something, or is more well dressed than the others, or seems like they have some sort of well standing. They may be informed about things.
While you're looking around, I sort of grab your wave at you and try and grab your attention and say, okay, what are we trying to find out here? I need to know what information we're looking for.
Presumably you'd like to find out what they'd like to do with you.
Okay, so that means we're going to need to find someone who would know that. I guess maybe anyone here could be. I don't know how we'd narrow that down.
So while you're looking around, so first of all, Kaylin Clark looks around, and everybody here honestly just seems to be like young kids partying, high on drugs. Looks like they're on like probably meth or whatever. It's like a very rough crowd. Nobody here looks like influential or well dressed. It's like a rough crowd of young people. However, you do notice across the dock a group of like rough, like bigger, burlier looking people who are wearing like motorcycle jackets and patches that say Cascadia Warriors, which is like one of the larger like street level gangs, just like petty criminal gangs in the city. They're like a biker gang, they drive around on motorcycles and are known for pushing amphetamines and other drugs in the city, as well as being involved in like prostitution and other criminal activities. And so you see some of them looking around, and at least one of them is sort of watching you guys at the bar.
Do I know whether or not they're human?
As far as you can tell, they're human. You have no reason to think otherwise, but you don't have any particular... as far as you can tell, they're human.
I'm going to pull out a high-value bill, whatever the currency is, and kind of flash it as though I'm looking to make a purchase to see if I can catch the attention of the one who's looking at me. Maybe he's got something I could purchase.
So you move or gesture towards.
I'm gonna be in the same place that we're at, kind of like at the edge of the bar, and this is gonna be a subtlety. I'm gonna kind of flash it. I presume someone of his practice there, the street pharmacist as he might be, would understand what I was signaling.
If I could jump in here real quick, can we start to wrap this up soon?
Yeah. Why don't we? So here's what I'm gonna say. So Jessica, well, first of all, Shad rejoins the two of you at the bar after leaving the boat and his conversation with King Rat. And as you reunify with Kaelin Clark and Sid Rogers, Jessica also materializes out of the crowd again and smiles and approaches you. And I guess we'll just simply pause there.
If we pick back up, could it be that while he was in the middle of that conversation, the thing that me and Dude would like to do can take place prior to Shad re-meeting up with us?
Oh, sure.
Works for me.
Okay.
Works for me.
Yep. So we'll wrap up the session here. Thank you guys very much for playing. Everybody can give themselves 6 experience points. So mark down somewhere that you have an additional 6 experience points plus whatever you got before. Thank you guys all very much for playing. We'll play again whenever you guys are ready. I guess Sunday, tomorrow, Nolo should be available, and maybe Astra. So if you guys want, we can play tomorrow. You can find this and all of our other role-playing uploads and other podcasts on the Temple Mount official YouTube and BitChute channels, and join the Temple Mount Discord server. That being said, I will kick out the recording bot, and then we can go jump up to the other room where we'll chill for the rest of the night. Good night, and see you soon.